What I love about Forever is we all start at the beginning and we all have the same opportunity to succeed. My journey to number one has been absolutely amazing, but it could have been so different. It took me 10 years to actually get started with Forever. My mum, Jan Whittaker, now number 5 in the UK, had been talking to me about it for 10 years. And for 10 years, I said no. My background was in marketing. I got made redundant twice. And I was then at home with my children, Will and Rosie. And my objective, when I finally decided to get started, was simply to earn just an extra few £100 per month. And I'm sure many of you share that same motivation as me. To be able to buy the kids an ice cream when you're out. To be able to take them to the soft play, to take them to watch a movie. Those few £100 a month would make all the difference. I worked really slowly at my business. And after 18 months, I was progressively earning that few £100 a month up to about 500. And I was happy with that. And you know, for me, being mum was the best job in the world. I wanted to be there for Will and Rosie. I didn't want to miss their first steps. I didn't want to miss the first smile. I didn't want to miss their first words. So nothing could take the place of those moments. But you know, I have to admit, there were times when the car broke down that I wish I had a better car. I absolutely loved to travel. And there were times I wish I could take the kids on an amazing holiday. But you know, those were just idle wishes, idle dreams. I never considered that I could change that. But then one day, everything did change. And it was just an ordinary day. Will was at preschool. I was at home with Rosie. And in between building brick towers, watching a bit of CBeebies, playing with her, putting the washing on, and maybe making a few phone calls thinking I was working my business. I decided to go and pick Will up from preschool and leave a little bit early. It was raining, so I took the umbrella. I put Rosie into the pushchair, and I walked to the little village hall where Will was. And as I opened the door, he came running to me and gave me a big hug. It was just like any other day. And then the teacher came over to me, and she looked at me excited. And she said, "Will's so excited about going to Disney. Are you going to Florida or Paris?" And I actually looked over my shoulder to see if she was actually talking to me. Meanwhile, Will came running over with his lunchbox, with Buzz Lightyear on. And she looked into my eyes, waiting for me to answer. And that was the moment that everything changed. That's the moment that I had my why. What's your why? Take a moment just to think why you're here, what it is that you're building your business for. It was 18 months into my business and I'd never set a goal. I was cruising. Every day I was getting up and I was seeing where my business was going to take me. And suddenly it was like switching on my sat-nav. It was like putting the postcode into my sat-nav. Before I had no postcode, I was making detours. I was taking the scenic route. I had no direction. But that goal, that taking Will to Disney, became my postcode. And I knew where I was going to be going each and every day. There was no longer any room for doubts and no room for fears. And that trip across the channel actually had a whole lifestyle shift for me. We all have choices. And you've got to know what you want and why you're doing it. And if you can do that, you'll always be able to change your circumstances. So my journey to being number one started with that one goal. That was the beginning. And ever since then, there's been many goals, many postcodes in my life sat-nav that have got me to here today. From taking the kids skiing, getting a cleaner, private education, taking them on safari, and to reaching a point of financial freedom. And through all those goals, I've seen my team soar to the top. You know, at times, it's been a roller coaster. And I'm sure lots of you feel that too. You know, there's times when I want to put my hands up in the air and scream with elation and pleasure. And other times, I've got so much fear that I'm hanging on tight, wondering if I'll ever get to the end of the roller coaster ride. But you know, I've learnt to overcome the scary bits. I've learnt now that mostly I can ride this roller coaster with my hands in the air. And if there are times when those scary hoops and loops challenge me, then I just have to look at Will and Rosie. I have to look at my why, and I know I can hang on tight. I can go through the fear because it's worth it. You know, why do we ride a roller coaster anyway? Because the thrill and the fear makes us feel alive. It makes it worthwhile. You know, forever through the past 9 years of my journey has stood secure and firm. It's always evolving. They're always there to help us. They've always got a vision for the future to grow with what's around us. So what I'm going to do to share my story with you is I'm going to use forever as an acronym to show my journey. So F is for faith. You know, Will was a child. He was a child with a dream to go to Disney. He had no boundaries. He had no need to be realistic. He wanted it. He decided it. And we were going. I had to learn from Will. I had to learn to have faith. I had to learn to have belief. And I had to reconnect with those childhood dreams. Because, you know, as we step into adulthood, we start shrinking our dreams to our salaries. And, you know, I went back to my school days. And I had a big fear that came from talking in class and being told to stand on my chair and read out loud. From that day forward, the fear of public speaking was horrendous. Before I started Forever, I had a speed dating company when speed dating first started. It ran very successfully, but never once did I stand and host an event in 2 years of running it because I was too scared of speaking. So I had to develop faith. I had to develop faith that I could stand up and do a product launch. I had to develop faith that I could do a one-to-one. I had to develop faith that I could make a great phone call. I had to develop faith that I could speak at a business presentation. I had to learn to get out of my comfort zone. You know, I believe this business is 90% mindset. You know, whatever you're telling yourself, whether you're saying you can or you're saying you can't, it's absolutely right. So I had to put my faith in my upline, in my sideline, in the people that inspired me. I put my faith into my mindset coach, Dave O'Connor. And slowly, I started to build up my confidence, to build up my self-esteem, to get through the fear of speaking. And I had to develop faith in the company, faith in the marketing plan, faith in the products. And I know if you're doing the activity and you've got the faith in everything that you do, then the results will soon follow. So like Will, I had to develop faith. Will had the faith we were going to Disney, and I started banishing that voice that was saying, you can't do this. And I listened to the voice that was Will, saying, Mummy, take me to see Buzz. O is for organisation. You know, being organised is being in control. It was simple for Will. He wanted to go to Disney. He wanted to wear a Buzz Lightyear costume. That was the plan. A simple plan. He didn't overcomplicate it. You know what I'd realised? Forever is so simple, but for years I'd overcomplicated it. All we need to do is show people the business and show them the products. It's not our job to convince anybody. So I started working on the simplicity of talking to 5 people every single day, even when I didn't feel like it. Whereas before I would have made excuses. So I quit making those excuses, and I started focusing on the activities that were going to generate case credits. They were my priority every single day. I no longer focused on all those people that said no to me, because I learned that I needed the no's to get to that one person that was going to say yes. And I got organised with childcare. By now, I was a single parent. I was 50 miles from any family. So I needed to find childcare for myself. Before, I might have used the children as an excuse to not be somewhere, but now they became my reason. I started developing systems to show the business to people. Thanks to Claire Spencer using Facebook for the first time, we started following and seeing how Facebook could make the business go faster. Claire started doing a 5-minute video, and we saw the results of it. So we all started recording from our iPhone 5-minute videos to send to people about the business opportunity. We started looking at the weight management program and seeing it as an amazing way to share our product range. The marketplace was huge. I started attending a business presentation every single week, and I knew I had to grow by putting myself forward to present. We started an online business presentation so we could access more people from home. And before long, we recorded that business presentation into a simple video that we could send to someone's inbox. As we started growing across the country, and if there weren't business presentations there from the company, we started setting up our own. And that meant that people within our group had to get up and speak. And if your guests, your team see you speaking, then your business is going to grow as a result. And everyone's confidence began to grow. And yes, I got out of my comfort zone as well. It took me 2 years to talk at my first business presentation. I used lots of techniques from Dave, and a technique which has always been great for me, Imodium, became my best friend. So as the team grew, we started doing sizzles, which started in my kitchen. They then went to the local village hall, to a pub room, to the point where now we hire out conference centres. We worked together as a team with a leadership team, so everybody was accountable. Everybody took responsibility, and the leaders within the group just grew and grew. Will's destination was Disney. I got organised and I booked that trip well before I could afford it. I put it onto my credit card. Now, I'm not standing here to recommend that to you, but that's what I did. And the fear of not being able to pay for it made me put my activity into action and get organised. And yes, we achieved our first goal. I can remember it like yesterday. My mum and my stepdad were coming with me on the trip. We all got in the car early one morning and we drove to the Eurostar, and we got stuck in a huge accident on the M40. And we arrived at the station running to the train just as it pulled out without us. I was devastated. R is for recognition. Recognition is the biggest motivator. It's so valuable, and I learnt it right back at the beginning, to recognize others more than you ever need it yourself. Every person, every step that they take is taking them out of their comfort zone, whether it's getting their first gel drinker, doing their first one-to-one, speaking at their first business presentation, getting their first recruit, getting their first promotion. It's so important to put their names in lights. People love to feel valued. They love that recognition. And using our Facebook groups has been absolutely amazing for that, to recognize them publicly within your team group, to recognize them on their profile so their friends and family can see. And there's nothing like a little note or a little gift in the post saying, "Well done," for whatever it is that they've done. Or a voice message or a phone call. You'll see your team's confidence soar by doing that. We run weekly webinars, and we'll always recognize people for their success on the webinars, and we'll ask them to speak and to share their story, which again will help their confidence soar. We then launched the Power Team Identity, which you can see in the photo up there. So there were 20 of us, I think, that arrived at a success day with Power Team t-shirts. And that's where it all began. People love to feel part of something. You know, since then we've done silly things like wearing masks, having fairy wings, Christmas decorations, to now colour themes. So you'll see lots of people in blue today to recognise all the sapphires we're about to see later from the team. And look around you. Look at all the team identities that have formed that create belonging. I've never liked being the focus, so I've always put my team up before me. And that's empowered them to believe in themselves more than maybe they ever thought possible. You know, number one has never, ever been a goal. It's never been a vision. And I'm simply keeping this position warm right now for somebody else to take it. You know, success is giving others the belief to be better than you. And network marketing is totally about wanting it for other people more than you do for yourself. But sometimes we've got to learn that not everything goes to plan. So we have to reassess, we have to refocus, and we have to restructure. And these challenges are simply the bumps in the road that are going to delay our journey. So as we stood at the Eurostar and we saw the train pull off from the station, I was in floods of tears. I'd worked so hard to make this happen, and I didn't want to let my little boy down. Thankfully, my mum took control of the situation. She was finding the solution rather than giving in to the despair that I felt at that moment. And we readjusted our plans. We got a different train. Yes, we had to change. But we got there just 2 hours later than planned. E is for empathy. Empathy is standing in someone else's shoes and seeing through their eyes. It's feeling what they feel. It's a skill I've had to learn to develop, because everybody joining this industry tends to be trying to escape something else. And we provide them with the vehicle to be able to do that. You might have had bigger challenges. You might have had bigger problems. But it's not about you. It's about them. Just think in your team who maybe you could have more empathy for right now. You know, empathy is the key for sharing the business. It's the key for sharing the products, and also the key for building belief. You've got to have empathy for everybody. It's not about people starting and being superstars within months, because many of my superstars have had to build their confidence first. So if they don't do their 4 case credits in the first month, that's okay. We've got to work with them and build with them. And then when they're ready, when they've got that confidence, they will then fly. I love Oprah's quote. Leadership is about empathy. It's about having the ability to relate to and connect with people for the purpose of inspiring and empowering their lives. You know, all of my leaders have got different qualities and different backgrounds, and we all have been given the same opportunity. When Will wanted to go to Disney, my first response was no. It wasn't my plan. We couldn't afford it. But then I looked into his excited eyes, and everything changed. I saw a different possibility. The world was simpler through the eyes of a 4-year-old, and I had empathy for Will in that moment and for that vision. I wasn't going to put my limitations on the shoulders of a 4-year-old. I wanted him to know that it was okay to dream. You know, imagine the possibilities for yourself if you allowed yourself to dream like that 4-year-old. V is for vision. You've got to create a vision that makes you want to jump out of bed in the morning. I was coasting. I was coasting because I had no vision. And vision is the art of seeing what is invisible to others. So you've got to have that courage to dream. What would your life look like 5 years from now if you took that courage to dream? If you connected with your why? You know, for 2 years I ignored the fact I was told to do a dream book, and finally I did. Finally I put my dreams into a book, and I could play a movie in my mind. I could play the movie of my kids in a private education, of dropping them off at school and being able to go to the gym, of living in a beautiful house, of going on many wonderful holidays. And 6 years later, I'm living that movie. That movie is the life for me and Will and Rosie. You know, our dream book decides our future. We work it together. And I remember from the moment we stuck in those pictures of Disney, when anyone walked through the door, Will would be showing them why Mummy was working, because Mummy was going to take him to see Buzz. E is for energy. You know, the energy that Bethan just shared from the stage talking about the products was incredible. Positive energy is going to give you positive results. You know, the power of the universe tells us what we put out, we're going to get back in. So what you're thinking is what you're going to attract in. What you're saying is what you're going to attract in. So I learned to present the business with energy. I learned to present the products with passion. You've got to love what you do. And you've got to surround yourself with people that are going to lift you higher. At times I had to step away from some people because they were draining me. And I had to be with those radiators, those people that believed in me, the people that I believed in. You can see here in this photo, of us. This was us out in Singapore with my lovely hairnet on. We were packing food packs for the homeless. There were a few hundred distributors in this one room. It was absolutely boiling hot. We were sweating. We were on our feet for a couple of hours. But we were surrounded with the most positive, passionate business owners. And you could just see from everybody around us the energy in that room. You know, when I think back to Will as that 4-year-old and the energy he had telling everyone we were going to see Buzz. R is for rewards. Big goals are going to bring big rewards. And the biggest reward of success is freedom. It's the ability to do whatever you want, whenever you want. You know, my goals have carried me to the top, but as I said, number one was not my vision, but freedom for my family was. You know, the cars, the education, the house, the holidays, that's amazing. But what's more important than that to me is my children knowing that anything is possible. It's my children knowing that with belief, with passion, and with an amazing work ethic, they can have the life that they dream of, and they can achieve whatever it is that they want for the future. You know, the rewards from forever just keep on coming. And I'm so, so grateful for them. I'm so grateful for the amazing company, the support, the help they give us. I'm amazingly grateful to my mum, sat there for never, ever giving up on me. And I'm grateful for all of my team. But really, I'm so grateful to Will. I'm grateful for Will for giving me that motivation, and for Will and Rosie always being my reason, my why. And seeing them both at Disney was the biggest reward I could have ever asked for. And just last month, my brother came over from Cape Town, so he's lived over there for 15 years. And he came over with his little boy. And my sister, who's also in the business now, she's got 2 children. And I surprised them all with a surprise trip to Disney for all of us. And you know, this is what forever has given me. These are the rewards that we can have if we're prepared to ride the roller coaster. You know, Forever really is the most incredible company. And together we're changing lives for our families, our friends, and people we're yet to meet. We're all here for totally different reasons. You know, some of you are already reaping the rewards, and others of you are maybe just at the start of your journey. But we've all got exactly the same opportunity, the same chance to succeed. Any one of you can be standing here in my place. You know, I dare you, I really dare you to dream big. You know, this quote from Walt Disney himself, if you can dream it, you can do it. So believe that you can, and I promise you will. Thank you, everyone, for listening.